Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to go a little bit different. Today we're going to talk about growth and what that means as an author. And I don't have any notes for today, but I'm going to just talk to you about kind of a little bit of my journey that I've been on and assessing the journey that I've been on. So if you were aware of, I think I talked about it a few weeks ago, that I was putting a pause on my latest book release. So I had planned to release book 3 in the Codex series pretty soon here, like next month. And I was working on it since the first of the year. And I really was like, really need to get this done. I'd actually been working. So I wrote it early last year. I wrote it, the vast majority of it in January and February of 2021. And I realized and I usually let books sit for a while. So I didn't really pick it back up again until November. Um, Probably around November. I kind of dabbled with it, didn't really get into it, would get sidetracked and then have to start over because, you go 9 months and you don't remember what you wrote. So I had to go back and read through to reacquaint myself with the story. And I had to do that like going through the whole thing. So I finally got really into the edits October, November. And the reason I remember is because I launched my Edit with an Editor membership in November, which has been amazing. It's been such a great motivator to work on the editing with a community. So if you're interested in that, you can always sign up. It's open all the time. You're welcome to join anytime. But you can get in on sprints. We do sprint days on Thursdays. And that's one of the best times. But we also do trainings on Tuesday. So it's just, yeah, it's a little unintentional plug there. If you're interested in that, you can check out the link in my bio about that. Or it's on my website too, or just DM me, ask. I'll be happy to send it to you. Anyway, so back on track. So when I started doing editing sprints in that group, I was able to work on my book and I had focused time every week to work on the book. And so since November, I worked on saying a lot today. I'm tired. Sorry, guys. I'm just tired today. So since November, I worked really hard on getting the fall of the Codex, which was book 3 in the Codex series. Worked on getting that done. And for whatever reason, I was just really, really struggling with it. Like really struggling. And I wasn't really sure why. And I wasn't really sure what was going on. I had reached out to a few people and, just to kind of talk through it. And I had gotten some advice but something was not right. And I didn't really know what that meant. And it was hard to decipher, honestly, in the moment, because I tend to be the type, well, in general, I think it can be a little hard to tell the difference between what is our fear speaking up and what is our intuition telling us to do. So for example, so every time I release a book, I inevitably will have some version of a panic attack leading up to the release, sometimes several. Especially my first book, there was like weekly panic attacks. So, but I pushed through, I got the book out and I'm very proud of myself for doing so. But the problem was sometimes you don't know if that's actually your intuition telling you like, okay, you need to pause on this. And sometimes it's really just your ego and your fear trying to hold you back from doing the thing that you want to do. Because they know it's going to change things, especially you release your first book. You will go from never being a published author to always being a published author. So it can be a lot for your body to handle and a lot for your system to handle, and that's fine. But it was a little bit different than that this time. And looking back, it's a little more clear. And because in the intervening weeks, I've had some time to think about it and analyze, because that's what my brain does, and think about the reasons behind it. And for me, I released So I wrote The Secret of the Codex, the first draft, in like 2008, 2009. And I edited it off and on for about 8 years. And then I went and published it in 2018. So this was, pre-pandemic. I was working full time. Um, I, my husband and I had been married 7 years at that point, I guess. Um, Actually, to the date after is when I released the book. So we took a joint like post book release anniversary trip, I think. Anyway, so 2018 was when I released the first book. So, but I had written it a decade before, and that's a whole other story that we won't get into here. I released book 2 in the series, actually re-released that first book, The Secret of the Codex, in 2019 with a new cover, because I knew that at that point that it was going to be a series, and I wanted this cover to fit in with the series. And so I hired a cover designer, because the first one I pretty much designed myself, which is, it's kind of bad, y'all. But anyway, I'm not a cover designer. So I re-released it in 2019. And then in 2020, I released book 2, The Prophecy of the Codex. And and this was October 2020. So at this point, what happened in the world? The pandemic hit. We were all in lockdown, quarantine, whatever you want to call it. And we had a lot of that going on. The world was pretty crazy. I'm sure you remember the dumpster fire that was 2020, and in a lot of ways still is. And so there was just a lot of stuff going on. But I also, at that point, the week that we were moving across the country is when I released that book, because that's how crazy I am. I like to plan my book release the week I move across country. Anyway, so it was a really good point in my life. I was really exciting, and I had started to lean into things, because obviously the pandemic brings a lot of stuff up. Like because life changes and growth is difficult sometimes, often. So when you have such an extraordinary life change in a short amount of time, basically we go from normal, what used to be normal, to wearing masks and social distancing and canceling family gatherings and any kind of gatherings. And I know you all know, because you were there. But it was a time of, it started a time of change in my life that was really needed, for me to become the person that I wanted to become, for me to grow into that person. There are different schools of thought on if you actually are that person and you're just uncovering it, or if you're becoming that person. However you want to call it, it's totally fine. I'm not going to get nitpicky about all the terms here. But thinking about how all of the things that happened in 2020 and in the subsequent years, there was a lot of change. There was a lot of dumpster fire. There was a lot of stuff going on that challenges you. And when you are challenged, you have the opportunity to grow. And so for that reason, since the pandemic started, since moving out here, since releasing first 2 of my books, and then last year I released my first romance novel that was a companion to the series. But it was set before the series happened. So there's no, it's just a contemporary romance. 2 of the main characters in there, I wanted to tell their story. So I went back and wrote that, actually as a way to deal with all of the craziness in 2020. I just sat down and only wrote that because I could not deal. For about, it was like 11 days straight that I just did really nothing but write that. And I wrote the first draft that way in the summer of 2020. Anyway, yeah. Okay. So, but since all of that happened, there has been a lot of change in my life, a lot of personal growth, a lot of things that have challenged me, and that I have done my best to choose growth and done my best to choose a better way, to learn how to be a better human, to learn how to be a better writer, to learn how to be more authentic and more real and more vulnerable and um, more accepting and more understanding. And if you haven't been around here all that time, I don't know if you probably wouldn't know any different. And it's possible because I'm still working on the the authentic vulnerability piece. It's possible you may not have even seen a lot of this transition. Hi, Steve. Thanks for coming. Um, but on the inside is where a lot of the growth happens, and growth is difficult. So I say all that to say, usually try to keep these lives under 10 minutes. Not so much today, but thank you for listening to this whole journey because we're getting to the point. Growth is hard. Growth does not come about when life is easy. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. So if you can, feel free to comment, DM, whatever on this post. Change is very difficult, especially when you're in the middle of it. And it's hard sometimes to hold on to that. You're not that you won't always grow, but you know that life ebbs and flows. And there are harder times and there are easier times. And there are times that you feel like you're constantly fighting. And there are times when you feel like everything's going right. And when you're in the midst of those fighting times and the times that are not so easy, it can be hard to lose sight of things. But it's also an opportunity to grow. And in order to grow into the person that you want to be, to enjoy and grab onto and experience the fullness of the joy that comes when the times are easy, you have to do that growth and commit to that growth during those hard times, whatever that looks like for you. There's a lot of things I won't get into that I have grown in, that I have learned to become more accepting in a lot of ways. And again, I'm not going to get into all of the details about that. But I've also grown as a writer. And when I say that, yes, I have grown in the writing craft. I understand things more. I have been an editor during all that time and worked with so many other authors. And the more you do these things, the more you learn, the more you pick up. And so I've become a better editor. I've become a better writer. I understand how a lot of things work that maybe I didn't, and certainly didn't know when I first started, but maybe I didn't know even back in 2020. And so I've grown in that process as well. But because I've grown personally and a lot of my viewpoints have changed, there were things, and this came up when I was usually, because you think in the shower. So as I was getting ready one morning, it just made me think that there are some things in the Codex series that I certainly, it's not that I don't stand by them, but there are things that I would not now, if I was writing them, I would not glorify. And one of the biggest things is violence. I feel like it was necessary for the story. I feel like it was expected in the genre. And I feel like it still is needed for the story to be told in the right way. And I don't ever think it was written in a way that was to glorify violence. But I think there were some messages there that may come across that I no longer feel are, I'm not sure. Just spitballing here with you guys. Again, I totally stand by the books that I put out. I love those books. I think they're amazing. I think they're so much fun. They were so much fun to write. And I think the violence in them was needed for the story. But as I've grown as a person and understood a lot more about what I truly believe and what I truly feel, I want to do better in showing how violence is so destructive. And I actually had come up with this a little while ago. And this is something I've been mulling over for a while. So I actually had the idea that in book 4, which is not written yet, that I would kind of bring that all full circle. And I would show the consequences of all that violence. And I still fully intend to do that because I feel like that is an important thing to talk about. It's an important thing, especially in today's day and age when a lot of people um, seem to think that violence is okay. And violence against other humans is not okay at all, in any way, shape, or form. So to me, I feel like that is a story that I need to tell. But in order to get to that point and to get in that headspace and get in the understanding to do that story justice, I feel like there's still a little bit that needs to happen. There's still a little bit of um, not necessarily a mindset shift, but just there's some things that my brain, subconscious, whatever needs to work through before I can get to that. And book 3 does have a lot of violence in it, but surprisingly not as much as the first 2 books. So this is why it's really interesting when I write and things come out and I don't realize that this is what I'm thinking. But then when I look back, it's like the hindsight's 2020. I'm like, oh yeah. And the violence that is in book 3, like 100% needed for the story. So again, it's not that I'm crapping on anybody that has violence in their books. It's a story. It's meant to tell a story. It's meant to show deeper truths. And again, I feel like it was completely needed in the Codex series, but I want to be able to do it justice and tell the stories that I want to tell. And part of that was also in book 3, there were some characters that I had not explored before. Some new characters I brought in. And I wanted to be cognizant of those characters and do them justice. And I won't go into detail about all of that. So I feel like sometimes there's times to push through and there's times of reflection. And for me, this is a time of reflection to see what all of this change that has happened in the last 2 years, what that actually means for my writing and the stories that I want to tell, what that actually means for the Codex series and how I want to end it, and what that actually means for the things that have now become so important to me that in some ways weren't even on my radar 4 years ago when I released my first book. And so I just wanted to get on and talk to you guys about this. I just wanted to kind of show you my thought process. And I know I kind of took a rambly way to get there. But if you've watched this far, thank you. And I hope it was helpful because also I hope it was encouraging. Because if you are going through a time of growth right now and it feels really hard and it feels like there's just a lot going on and everything is just a shit show, and yeah, it can be a lot. But I hope you know, and I hope you can rest in knowing that things will get better. Life always ebbs and flows. And there's always someone there, whether you call it God, universe, source, however you refer to it. There's always someone there that is working things out. And the things that you can't control are being worked out by a power higher than you that has your back. I'll just put it that way. Again, whatever you believe. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up all of my rambling. Short version is I really don't know what my next book release will be. I actually started a new book. Completely different genre, completely different. I mean, well, it's romance, but yeah, completely off the wall. Completely something I never thought I would write in more ways than one. But I'm really loving it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And that's part of that reflection time. If you have the time of reflection, sometimes it's good to lean into new things, to lean into creativity, to see where your muse is taking you, because a lot of times that's where you can find the way through. So again, I hope that was encouraging. I hope it was helpful. Thank you for listening to my ramblings. And yeah, we'll talk soon. I'll definitely keep you posted about my writings and my upcoming books and all the things I'm working on. And there's different seasons for me. Sometimes I'm really focused on the writing. Sometimes I'm focused on the business side and helping authors, like with my Instagram course that I have starting this week. So it's, yeah, I have a lot of different things going on, and that's how my brain works. That's how I have to operate. That I've just accepted that about myself. Like I have to have all these different things going on because there's a lot of different things I enjoy and a lot of different things I can offer and a lot of different ways to help people. So yeah. Anyway, I will stop rambling. Thank you again so much for coming. Um, and if you want to chat, my DMs are always open. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening.